An orphan girl lived alone in an abandoned house after her father's death in an accident. But when the new neighbors arrived and discovered what she was hiding in the basement, what happened left everyone speechless. The scorching mid-afternoon sun casts long shadows over the dusty streets of the small town. Trees line the main road, their twisted branches seeming to reach out to one another in a perpetual embrace. The houses, marked by time and neglect, tell stories of past glory now reduced to cracks in the walls and peeling paint. The camera lingers at the far end of town, where the air feels heavier and the silence runs deeper. There, surrounded by overgrown shrubs and weeds that have taken control of the place, stands Anna's house. Old, its facade worn down by the years, windows broken, and boards poorly fitted over the front door. The house seems like a living presence, watching with melancholy at anyone daring enough to look back. On the porch, Anna West, a 12-year-old girl, stands beneath a roof that seems on the verge of collapse. Her dark hair falls in disheveled locks over her shoulders. Her large, dull eyes contain a weight that few adults could bear. She wears a simple dress, washed so many times it has lost its color, and worn-out shoes that have traveled more miles than they should have. Her small, calloused hands hold a bag of bread, baked with effort the previous night, her only source of income. Anna crouches over her makeshift garden beside the house, a small patch of soil where a few vegetables grow, looking as exhausted as she does. Her movements are methodical, almost mechanical, pulling weeds and checking leaves for pests. By her side, Max, a mongrel dog with golden fur and drooping ears, watches her loyally, as if he knows that his presence is the only constant in Anna's life. The town whispers about her. The few people who pass on their way to the central square turn their heads to murmur. "That's the girl from the cursed house," some say. Ever since her father died, everything in that house is cursed. The words, though barely audible, reach Anna's ears, but she does not react. She's used to it. That morning, Anna sets off toward town. The bag of bread hangs from her arm, and Max follows with energetic steps. Along the way, a group of children playing with a ball notice her. When Anna walks by, their game stops. One of the kids points in her direction and whispers something that causes nervous laughter among the others. "There goes the girl from the cursed house," says a voice. Anna presses her lips together and lowers her gaze, quickening her pace. In the town's makeshift market, Anna places her bread on a small cloth and waits for someone to approach. Some people buy it, but avoid eye contact. Others simply ignore her. When the sun begins to set, Anna collects the coins she has earned and puts away the cloth, heading back home. The sunset paints the sky in orange and purple hues. Under that light, the silhouette of the house seems even more desolate. Anna sits on the porch, her gaze lost on the horizon. Max, as always, is by her side. He rests his head on her lap, and Anna, almost unconsciously, strokes his ears. On her face, a mixture of resignation and a longing she doesn't know how to express. The last ray of sunlight disappears, revealing the house in all its loneliness, surrounded by trees, leaving only twilight behind. Anna remains there, a small yet resilient figure, a symbol of a silent struggle against a world that seems to have forgotten her. The morning sun lights up the dusty streets of the town when a moving truck disrupts the usual calm. Its tires stir up a cloud of dust that floats in the air before settling slowly over the sidewalks and wilted shrubs. The few neighbors out on the street stop to watch, some curious, others wary, as the truck comes to a halt in front of the house next to Anna's. It's a home slightly less deteriorated than the others, but still bearing the marks of time and neglect. Mariana Lopez, 38, climbs down from the truck and begins directing the workers. Her dark hair is tied in a messy bun, and her expression mixes determination with a weariness that seems to stem from years of struggle. Despite her strong stance, her eyes reflect a difficult past she is trying to leave behind. Her children, Diego, a 16-year-old boy with headphones in his ears and a serious expression, and Laura, a 10-year-old girl brimming with contagious energy, jump off the truck to explore their new home. Laura runs back and forth, making up games as workers unload boxes and furniture. Diego, on the other hand, sits on the porch with his legs crossed, his music blocking out the noise around him. "What's up with that house?" asks Diego, pointing with his chin toward Anna's home, barely visible behind an unkempt hedge and the trees that surround it like a natural shield. Mariana, busy placing boxes in the right spots, responds evasively. "It's just another old house, son. Focus on unpacking." Diego frowns but doesn't insist. His gaze remains fixed on the neighboring house, as if something about it draws him in. By afternoon, after the family has unpacked the essentials, Laura quickly grows bored and decides to explore beyond the limits of their new home. Approaching the hedge that separates their house from Anna's, she hears a dog's soft bark. Intrigued, she peeks through the branches and sees Anna crouched in her garden, pulling weeds with meticulous movements. Max, her faithful companion, lies beside her, keeping watch. "Hi," says Laura, her cheerful voice breaking the silence. Anna looks up for a brief moment. Her large eyes seem to size Laura up with a mix of surprise and distrust. Without a word, she stands and hides behind a nearby tree, taking Max with her. "Wait, I didn't mean to scare you," says Laura, but Anna doesn't answer. After a few seconds, Laura gives up and heads back home, though the image of the withdrawn girl remains etched in her mind. That night, during dinner, Laura can't contain herself and begins to tell what she saw. "Mom, there's a girl in the house next door," she says excitedly, waving her arms for emphasis. "She looked like a ghost. She was in the garden, but when I spoke to her, she hid." Mariana, exhausted from the day, barely lifts her eyes from her plate. "Maybe she's just shy, Laura. Not everyone wants to make friends right away." Diego, however, shows more interest. "A girl in that house? I thought it was abandoned. Tomorrow I'll go see what's up." Mariana gives him a warning look. "Leave her alone, Diego. We have enough on our plate settling in without meddling in other people's lives." Laura laughs. "Maybe she really is a ghost. That would explain why the house looks so spooky." Diego smiles for the first time all day, though he says nothing more. Mariana, on the other hand, ignores the topic, focusing on planning the next steps to settle into their new home. Still, a certain restlessness begins to grow within the family, awakened by the neighboring house and its mysterious inhabitant. Dawn slips gently over the small town, illuminating the house next to Anna's. Laura, excited about her new plan, sits on her porch holding a wildflower she picked from the garden. Her eyes shine with the determination of someone about to embark on an adventure. Meanwhile, Mariana and Diego are busy arranging the last boxes in the living room, unaware of what Laura is up to. When she sees Anna appear in her garden, with Max close behind, Laura stands up. She walks carefully toward the fence that separates the two houses, her steps light so as not to startle the girl who intrigued her so much the day before. Anna, bent over her small plot, does not see her coming. "Hi," says Laura with a broad smile, holding the flower out in front of her like an offering of peace. Anna lifts her gaze slowly, surprised by the voice. Her expression is cautious, her eyes scrutinizing Laura with mistrust. She does not respond. Max, however, wags his tail, breaking the tension slightly. "I'm Laura. I moved here yesterday," Laura adds, keeping her friendly tone. The flower remains extended in her hand. "I saw your garden. It's very pretty." Anna lowers her eyes to the flower and then at Max, who has stepped closer to Laura, curious. Though she still doesn't speak, the dog's presence seems to relax her a bit. "What's his name?" asks Laura, pointing at Max. "Anna," says the girl in a whisper. Then, more clearly, "His name is Max." Laura smiles, triumphant at having elicited a response. "Max is a good name. He seems very nice. Can I pet him?" Anna nods slightly, and Laura kneels to pat Max's head, who responds by wagging his tail enthusiastically. "I like plants too," says Laura, eyeing the small garden, "though I've never had one. What are you growing?" "Tomatoes and carrots," Anna replies, this time with a bit more confidence. Though her words are brief, there's a subtle change in her tone, as if she is starting to accept Laura's presence. "Can I help you with the garden tomorrow?" Laura asks excitedly. Anna doesn't respond immediately. She looks at Laura and then at Max, as if searching for a sign. Although she doesn't say yes, she doesn't refuse either, which is enough for Laura. "Great, I'll come by tomorrow then," she says, before saying goodbye with a small wave. Meanwhile, Diego, bored of unpacking and driven by curiosity, decides to explore the neighboring property. Walking around the house, he finds a corner where branches partly cover a worn wooden door. Intrigued, he carefully pushes the branches aside and tries the handle. The door opens with a long, creaking sound. Beyond it, a steep staircase descends into darkness. Diego wrinkles his nose at the smell of dampness and dust emanating from below. Though his instincts tell him he shouldn't go down, curiosity is stronger. He takes a step inside and leans toward the darkness, trying to glimpse something with the light filtering through the door. The air is heavy, and the silence in the basement is only broken by the faint dripping of water. Diego steps back, closing the door carefully. Something about that place unsettles him, but it also captivates him. "I'll come back tomorrow," he murmurs to himself, determined to discover what the basement is hiding. Back home, Diego and Laura share their day with their mother, though for very different reasons. Laura can't stop talking about Anna and Max, while Diego keeps his discovery to himself, waiting for the right moment to investigate further. The house at the end of town continues to guard its secrets, but now it seems those secrets won't stay hidden much longer. The noonday sun illuminates Anna's garden, where she and Laura sit together on the ground. Anna pulls out weeds, while Laura, carefree, places tiny flowers between her fingers as if they were rings. Max, true to form, lies nearby, watching the girls with his tongue hanging out. Laura, driven by her insatiable curiosity, breaks the silence. "Anna, what's in that basement behind your house? Diego told me he saw a door, but he didn't want to open it because it was dark." Anna goes still, her hands pausing over the plants. She lowers her head, her expression shifting from calm to a mix of sadness and nervousness. "It was my father's workshop," she murmurs. "I haven't been down there since he died." Laura scoots closer, placing a hand on Anna's arm. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you, but weren't you ever curious about what's in there? There might be something important." Before Anna can answer, Diego, who has been listening from the corner of the garden, approaches. "Laura's right," he says in a calm yet determined tone. "If that was your father's workshop, maybe he left something that could help you understand what happened." Anna looks at them both, her expression a whirlwind of emotions. "I don't know," she whispers. "I'm not sure I want to remember." Laura smiles gently, trying to reassure her. "You don't have to do it alone. We'll be there with you. And Max too, right, Max?" The dog barks softly, as though he understands. Finally, after a few minutes of silence, Anna nods. "Okay, but if we go down, we do it fast." A while later, the three stand before the basement door. Diego carries an old flashlight he found in his kitchen. Anna opens the door with trembling hands, revealing the staircase descending into darkness. The air smells of damp earth and dust, and the children's footsteps echo in the enclosed space. When they reach the bottom, the flashlight's beam illuminates a place frozen in time. Rusty tools hang from the walls, and a workbench is covered with yellowed papers. Stacks of boxes lie hidden under a thick layer of dust. Anna remains still, her eyes sweeping the room as if searching for traces of her father. Diego takes the initiative, checking the nearest boxes. In one, he finds a notebook filled with scribbled notes and sketches of what appears to be machinery. "Look at this," he says, showing Anna the drawings. She nods, recognizing her father's handwriting. In another box, Diego finds an old tape recorder and a couple of labeled cassettes. "This could be important," he says, inserting one of the tapes and pressing play. A moment of silence is followed by the warm, worried voice of Rick West, Anna's father. "If you're listening to this, it means something happened to me," the recording begins. Anna brings her hands to her mouth, eyes full of tears. Laura squeezes her hand in comfort. Rick continues, "I've been documenting everything that's happening at the mine. The machines are failing, and nobody is doing anything. I'm worried about the men who work here, but also about you, Anna. Everything I do is for you. If this recording reaches you, seek help. Don't face this alone." Anna can't hold back her tears. Laura embraces her, while Diego keeps going through the papers. He finds safety reports and notes related to the mine, describing in detail the machinery failures and the warnings Rick tried to send to his superiors. "These papers are important," says Diego, tucking some into a backpack. "They might help us understand what really happened." Anna, though overwhelmed, nods. "All right. If this can bring justice to my dad, we'll do it." They climb the stairs, leaving the basement behind, but carrying a heavier burden. The knowledge that something far bigger and more dangerous is lurking in the shadows of the mine and Rick's story. The first step toward the truth has been taken. Mariana sits in her kitchen, the documents from Anna's basement spread out across the table. The recorder with Rick's voice still seems to echo in the air, filling the room with palpable tension. Diego and Laura are asleep, and the house is completely silent, except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Mariana knows she needs help. This is bigger than what she can handle alone. Determined, she picks up her phone and calls an old colleague from the hospital, someone who always seemed well connected to the city's stories. After a brief conversation, she gets a name: Logan Brown, a journalist once acclaimed for exposing corruption in large companies, but whose reputation and career were destroyed after a scandal involving Velasco Mining. That night, Mariana finds Logan in a rundown bar on the outskirts of town. The place is nearly empty, with worn tables and an old TV broadcasting a soccer match. Logan sits in a corner, hunched over a glass of whiskey. His disheveled hair and unkempt beard reflect years of neglect. Mariana approaches cautiously, carrying a folder of documents. "Logan Brown?" she asks. He looks up slowly, tired eyes and a cynical expression. "Depends on who's asking. If you came to offer me an exclusive, you're a decade too late." Mariana ignores the remark and sits down in front of him. "I need your help. I have proof that Velasco Mining covered up something very serious. A man died trying to expose it." Logan lets out a bitter laugh and takes a sip of his whiskey. "Velasco Mining? Of course. I already tried to expose them. Know what I got? Nothing. They buried me, took away my job, my credibility, even my family. Why should I get involved again?" Mariana observes him patiently, allowing his pain to surface. Then she places the tape recorder on the table and presses play. Rick's voice fills the air. "If you're listening to this, something happened to me. Everything I do is for my daughter, Anna." Logan falls silent, eyes fixed on the recorder. Mariana seizes the moment. There's a girl who lives alone in an old house with only a dog and the memories of her father. He died because he refused to turn a blind eye to injustice. If we don't do something, that girl will remain trapped in that shadow forever. Logan averts his gaze, his expression hardening. "I'm no hero, lady. I'm a ruined man." "Maybe," says Mariana firmly, "but you can still do the right thing." Hours later, in his disordered apartment, Logan sits on a rickety chair with the folder of documents spread out before him. Papers are everywhere: safety reports, scribbled notes, and contracts signed with names he finds unsettlingly familiar. He lights a cigarette and takes a deep drag, his eyes scanning the words on each page. Suddenly, something catches his attention, a name and a date matching a case he investigated years ago. His mind begins to connect the dots, and the cynicism that consumed him for so long starts to crumble. "This is bigger than it seems," he mutters to himself. Logan stands up and picks up an old photograph from his desk. It's an image of a smiling girl, his daughter, whom he hasn't seen in years. He places it next to the documents and stubs out the cigarette. Something inside him, a spark of what he once was, begins to glow again. That night, Logan commits himself to helping Mariana and Anna, not just for them, but also as an attempt to redeem himself. For the first time in a long while, he feels he still has a mission. The flickering light of a desk lamp illuminates Logan Brown's messy living room. The smoke from a slowly burning cigarette mingles with the stale air of the small apartment. Logan sits before a table piled with yellowed papers, hastily scribbled notes, and technical figures. His attention is completely absorbed. With one hand, he shuffles through sheet after sheet, while with the other, he holds the cigarette. The documents, salvaged from Anna's basement, are a jumble of inspection reports, technical diagrams, and Rick West's personal annotations. In every line, Logan finds traces of a desperate man trying to do the right thing, aware of the risks. One document stands out, a report dated a few weeks before the accident that claimed Rick's life. In it, Rick precisely details how one of the mine's main machines showed critical failures that could cause a disaster. There are also records of internal emails and reports where Rick warned management of imminent danger. Yet the responses, when they exist, are cold and dismissive, urging him not to raise unnecessary alarms and to focus on his work. Logan sighs deeply and picks up another sheet. This document, an internal memo, mentions several previous accidents minimized as minor incidents to avoid alarming investors. "Bastards," mutters Logan, his eyes filled with a blend of fury and determination. Next to the papers lies the tape recorder found in the basement. Logan presses play, and the sound of heavy machinery fills the room, followed by Rick's voice, warm but filled with worry. "Today they told me not to stick my nose where it doesn't belong," Rick says on the tape, "but I can't stay silent. If something happens to me, it's because I decided not to close my eyes to what's going on here. The machines are failing, and no one seems to care. But I care. I care about my co-workers, their families, and about you, Anna." Logan stops the recorder for a moment, rests his elbows on the table, and rubs his eyes. There's something in Rick's voice that deeply moves him. After a moment, he stands up, gathers the papers and the recorder, and sets out to bring this information to Mariana and Anna. In the Lopez home, Mariana, Anna, Laura, and Diego gather in the living room as Logan enters, carrying the folder with the documents. Anna sits on the sofa with Max at her feet, while Laura tries to lighten the mood with her usual energy. Yet everyone knows that what Logan is about to share could change everything. "I found something," says Logan, as he places the papers on the table. "Your father, Anna, knew something was going to happen. He tried to warn them, but they ignored him. And not only that, there are records of other accidents they covered up to avoid legal trouble." Anna, who had been staring at the floor, looks up. Her eyes are full of questions, but she remains silent. Logan picks up the recorder and sets it in the center of the table. "I want you to listen to this." He presses play, and Rick's voice fills the room. Anna leans forward, as if trying to reach her father through the sound. His final words, a direct message to Anna, make her tremble. "Anna, if you ever hear this, I want you to know that I love you. Everything I did was for you." Tears begin to roll down Anna's cheeks, while Max curls up closer to her, as if he knows his owner needs comfort. Mariana places a hand on Anna's shoulder, and Laura and Diego watch in silence, impressed by the depth of Rick's sacrifice. When the recording ends, Anna takes a deep breath and wipes her tears away with her sweater sleeve. Her voice, though shaky, is filled with determination. "I want everyone to know what they did to my dad. He doesn't deserve to be forgotten." Logan nods, moved by the girl's courage. "We will, Anna. We won't let them get away with it." The group, aware of the dangers they face, feels a renewed sense of purpose. It's time to fight for the truth. The main office of Velasco Mining, a modern building that contrasts sharply with the town's bleak landscape, is bathed in the light of sunset. On the top floor, Victoria Velasco, CEO of the company, sits behind an impeccably organized desk. Her posture is upright, projecting authority and calm, but her eyes, cold and calculating, reveal her true nature. An assistant enters holding a report, looking tense. "Ms. Velasco, we have a problem. A journalist, a woman and her family, along with a young girl. They've started investigating the accident at the mine. It seems they have access to internal documents." Victoria takes the report without a word, leafing through it quickly. Her lips curve into a slight smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "How interesting," she murmurs, closing the report with a decisive snap. She picks up the phone on her desk and dials a number. "Carlos, come to my office. We have an urgent matter." Minutes later, Carlos Salgado, a man with an intimidating demeanor, shrewd eyes, and calculated movements, enters the room. "What's going on, Ms. Velasco?" Victoria tosses the report onto the desk. Someone is snooping where they shouldn't. A girl, her neighbor, and a disgraced journalist. Before this becomes a bigger problem, I want it handled. Carlos nods, his smile more like a grimace. "Don't worry. Everything will be taken care of." That same night, as Anna gathers vegetables from her garden, an uneasy feeling runs down her spine. She pauses, looking around. The trees surrounding her house sway gently in the wind, but something about them seems off. Max, always alert, begins a low growl, staring in a specific direction. Anna follows his gaze and sees a shadow among the trees. Though barely visible, the camera shows a flash. Someone is taking photos. "Who's there?" shouts Anna, her voice trembling but firm. The figure quickly disappears among the trees. Anna runs back to the house with Max at her side, shutting the door behind her. Her heart pounds as she tries to calm herself. Hours later, Mariana, who has been working late with Logan reviewing the documents, finds a note on the front door. The letters, handwritten in black ink, are clear and direct. "Stop looking for trouble or you'll find it." Mariana shivers. She takes the note to Logan, who studies it closely. "This is typical of Velasco Mining," he says gravely. "First they watch you, then they try to scare you. If you don't stop, they move to the next level. This only means we're close to something important." Mariana nods, concern etched on her face. "What do we do now?" "We keep going," Logan responds with determination. "But carefully. We can't let them intimidate us." Meanwhile, Carlos Salgado sets his surveillance network in motion. He uses his contacts in town to spread rumors discrediting Logan and Mariana, insinuating that their intentions are selfish or even dangerous. At the same time, he recruits Samuel, a young miner desperate to keep his job, to keep a close watch on Anna. Samuel, who works exhausting hours in the mine to support his sick mother, is in a vulnerable position. Carlos approaches him in a local bar, offering him a deal. "I just need you to tell me what that girl and her family are doing. In return, I'll make sure you get a permanent position at the mine and will cover your mother's medical expenses." Samuel hesitates, but economic pressure and Carlos's menacing tone persuade him. "All right, I'll do what I can." Tension rises at the Lopez home and Anna's house. The family begins to notice that Anna's and Logan's movements are tracked by unknown men in dark cars. In a particularly unsettling scene, Diego watches a black car drive slowly past the house for the third time in one afternoon. "Something's not right," he tells Mariana. "I know," Mariana replies, placing the threatening note in a drawer. "But we can't give up, not after what we've found." Unknowingly, The small group has become the target of a relentless machine willing to protect its secrets at any cost. Night falls, wrapping the small town in silence. In Logan's living room, Mariana sits by the table, reviewing the documents they found in Anna's basement. The lights are dim, and the smell of cigarettes mingles with the stale air. Logan stands near the window, looking out at the empty street. His relaxed posture contrasts with the visible tension on Mariana's face. Since receiving the anonymous note, Mariana hasn't been able to shake off a crushing feeling, a weight that reminds her of things she'd tried to bury. Logan, noticing her unease, puts out his cigarette and approaches, leaning against the edge of the table. "You're too quiet," he says softly. "What's going on?" Mariana tries to dodge the question, focusing on the papers in front of her. "Nothing. I'm just thinking about how to organize all of this so it makes sense." Logan tilts his head, unconvinced. "Mariana, I've spent enough time reading between the lines to know when someone's avoiding something. You can talk to me." She sighs, letting her shoulders drop, as if the weight of her past is too heavy to keep carrying alone. "It's not easy to explain," she begins, her voice barely audible. "It's something I thought I'd left behind, but this situation, that note, it brings everything back." Logan sits down in front of her, his eyes fixed on hers. He says nothing, but his silence is an invitation for her to continue. Mariana takes a deep breath, as if summoning the strength for the words that are about to come out. "Esteban," she finally says, her voice trembling at the mention of the name. "My husband. Well, my ex-husband. When I met him, he was the most charming man in the world, charismatic, fun, a loving father to Diego and Laura. But over time, something changed." Mariana pauses, her gaze lost in the past. "He became controlling, possessive. He made me feel like I was nothing without him. If I did anything he didn't like, his words cut like a knife. Then came the shouting. And finally, the blows." Logan listens silently, his face hardening with each word. Mariana clasps her hands together, trying to control the emotions threatening to overflow. I tried to protect my children. I always put my body between them and his anger. But one night, when Diego was 10, he almost hit him. That was the last straw. I decided I had to leave for their sake. I planned everything. Where to go, how to escape. But before I could do it, Esteban died in a car accident. Mariana stops, her eyes filled with tears she refuses to shed. It was both a relief and a punishment. I was free of him, but I never stopped feeling guilty for not having done more, for not having left sooner. That note, it made me feel like I was back in that prison. Logan reaches out, covering her hands with a sincere gesture of support. "You can't blame yourself for what happened," he says, his voice stern but full of empathy. "You did what you could with what you had at the time, but now you have control, and you can decide how to move forward." Mariana looks at him, surprised by the depth of his words. For years, she had kept her pain locked away, trying to be strong for her children, but in this moment, she feels she can allow herself to be vulnerable. A silent connection begins to form between them, an understanding neither expected, but both need. The night continues, but the atmosphere in the room changes. Though the weight of the past remains, their mutual support gives them strength to face it. Both know the coming days will be even more difficult, but for the first time, they feel they are not alone in this struggle. The sun barely peeks over the mountains when Mariana, accompanied by Anna, begins their rounds through the town. With a folder under her arm and a determination that struggles to overcome her fear, she knocks on the first door. Don Ernesto, an older man whose face is lined by years of work in the mine, opens it with a cautious expression. "Don Ernesto, we need to talk," says Mariana firmly. "We have proof that Velasco Mining has covered up accidents and negligence at the mine. Anna's father died trying to expose it." The man listens in silence while Anna, standing beside Mariana, watches him with a mixture of hope and anxiety. Finally, Don Ernesto sighs and crosses his arms. "Look, ma'am, I'm not surprised by what you say. I know those bastards don't care about us. But what can we do? If we stand up to them, we lose our jobs. How are we going to feed our families?" Mariana tries to convince him. "If we join forces, we can accomplish something. We're not alone." Don Ernesto shakes his head. "You don't understand. They have power, money, everything we don't. This is a fight we can't win." At the next house, Sofia, a mother of 3, listens attentively as Mariana explains what they've found. The woman, holding her baby in one arm, looks uneasy. "Do you know what happened the last time someone tried to sue them?" she asks. "They lost everything. Their home, their family, everything. And Velasco Mining is still here, as if nothing happened." "But if no one does anything, they'll keep destroying lives," insists Mariana. Sofia shakes her head, her eyes filled with fear. "I can't take that risk. I'm sorry." As the day goes on, Mariana and Anna visit more homes, but the answers don't change. Though the neighbors listen, and some even show empathy, fear and resignation weigh heavier than justice. Velasco Mining not only controls the town's economy, but also the future of the families who depend on it. In a symbolic scene, Mariana and Anna stop in front of the town square. A group of children plays carefree in the street, while just a few meters away, their parents gather in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. The furtive glances and nervous gestures show that Mariana's proposal is the topic of conversation. The fear of Velasco Mining's power looms like a dark cloud over every corner of the town. Anna, who has been watching in silence, finally speaks. "They're afraid too, aren't they?" Mariana, her heart heavy, nods. "Yes, but fear can't be our only answer. If they won't fight, we will." Meanwhile, back at Logan's house, the journalist is immersed in new research. Surrounded by documents and a town map dotted with marks, he discovers something that leaves him astonished. "Velasco Mining doesn't just control the mine," he says aloud, as if he needs to hear himself to believe it. "They control local officials, judges, even the police. This isn't just a mine, it's an empire." When he shares this information with Mariana later, his expression shows concern. "So how do we fight something this big?" she asks. Logan, without taking his eyes off the papers, responds firmly. "By making noise, by exposing what they're hiding. If we can't win in local courts, we'll take it beyond." That night, at Anna's house, everything seems calm. Anna is lying in bed with Max curled up at her feet. The camera shows the inside of the room, where a flashlight flickers on the bedside table, then moves outside, focusing on the porch. In the shadows, a hooded man approaches quietly. He carries a package in his hands, which he places carefully in front of the door. The camera lingers on the package as the man disappears into the darkness. On the stone inside the package, a red stain simulates blood, a clear, threatening message. The sound of Max growling alerts Anna, who gets up and goes to the window. Her figure, small but determined, peers toward the porch. The camera shows her tense expression as she sees the package, while Max barks furiously. The threat has escalated from subtle to direct. The fight for truth is now a matter of courage and survival. Inside the mine, the air is heavy, mixed with the constant noise of worn-out machinery. Samuel, a 20-year-old with tired eyes and hands hardened by work, moves through narrow corridors, carrying out his tasks as an assistant. Though the job is temporary and poorly paid, it's his only option to support his sick mother. Each day is a struggle against despair, but Samuel doesn't complain. He just carries on. That day, during a brief break, Carlos Salgado, Velasco Mining's head of security, approaches him. With his imposing presence and calculated tone, Carlos can make anyone feel small. "Samuel, I need to talk to you. It's important," he says, leading him to a more secluded corner. The clandestine meeting takes place that same night in a discreet bar on the outskirts of town. Carlos sits across from Samuel, his tense smile like a predator about to strike. On the table, a folder of documents and a sealed envelope seem to invite a decision. "We know your mother is ill," begins Carlos in an almost kind tone. "It must be hard to pay for her medication on the salary you have. But I can help you. If you do me a small favor, I'll make sure you get a permanent job in the mine, and we'll cover all your mother's medical expenses." Samuel frowns, uncertain. "What favor?" Carlos leans forward, his voice low but firm. "There's a girl, Anna, and a group of people who are trying to cause us trouble. I need you to get close to them. Find out what they know, what they're planning. I need information about some documents they might have. Nothing complicated, just a little help." "And if I say no?" asks Samuel, though doubt is already in his eyes. Carlos leans back, his smile fading. "I wouldn't recommend it, Samuel. Your mother depends on you, right? You wouldn't want anything to happen to her." The young man swallows hard. He's caught between the desperate need to protect his mother and the moral weight of what he's being asked to do. Finally, he nods. "I'll do what I can." In the days that follow, Samuel starts frequenting the places where Diego and Ana usually spend their time. He observes carefully, waiting for the right moment to approach. One afternoon, he finds Diego and Ana sitting on Ana's porch, reviewing documents in the dim light of sunset. "Hi," says Samuel in a friendly tone. "I'm Samuel. I work at the mine. I've heard about what you're doing." Diego looks up, initially wary. "And what exactly are we doing?" Samuel smiles, trying to seem harmless. "My dad worked in the mine too. He always said those owners don't care about anyone. If you're trying to expose something, I want to help." Diego, though suspicious, feels an immediate connection to Samuel's words. "It's good to know we're not alone," he says, letting his guard down a bit. Ana, however, remains distant. Her eyes fixed on Samuel seem to analyze his every gesture and word. Max, sitting by her side, doesn't stop watching him, as if sensing something odd in his presence. "Why now?" Ana asks, her tone cold. "We've never seen you before." Samuel shrugs. "I just thought it was time to do something. I don't want any more families going through what mine did." Diego seems convinced, but Ana does not. Though she says nothing more, her distrust of Samuel grows. His sudden appearance and interest in helping them doesn't seem like a coincidence. While Samuel tries to infiltrate their small circle, Carlos Salgado continues pulling strings from the shadows. For Samuel, the pressure increases each passing day as he tries to meet Carlos's demands without raising suspicion. But what he doesn't know is that Ana's intuition may be his greatest obstacle. The web of lies Samuel is weaving is about to be pulled tight. The hospital where Mariana works as a nurse is a place of constant activity. Hallways full of patients and hurried doctors contrast with the heavy calm of Dr. Alvarez's office, Mariana's immediate superior. She is summoned to his office and upon entering finds the doctor sitting behind an immaculate desk. His expression is cold, his eyes calculating. "Have a seat, Mariana," he says, indicating a chair in front of him. She obeys, feeling the rising tension in the air. Dr. Alvarez leans forward, interlacing his hands on the desk. "I've heard you're getting involved in matters that don't concern you. Velasco Mining, as you know, is a major contributor to this hospital. Without them, many of the people we treat wouldn't receive the care they need." Mariana looks him straight in the eye but remains silent. She knows where this conversation is headed. "It would be a shame," the doctor continues, his tone colder now, "if someone lost their job for raising unnecessary suspicions. I hope you understand what I'm saying." Mariana nods slowly, her face impassive, but inside she feels the threat choking her. "I understand," she finally says, standing up from the chair. Without waiting for more words, she leaves the office, the echo of the warning resounding in her mind. That night, back home, Mariana tries to keep her composure as she prepares dinner, but the stress of the threats at the hospital and the weight of the fight against Velasco Mining eat away at her. In the living room, Diego and Laura are discussing what's happening. Diego is full of enthusiasm, talking about how they're gathering more evidence and the impact they might have. "If we can get more people in town to speak up, we could make something big happen," says Diego, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Laura, sitting on the couch, looks at him skeptically. "And what if we only make things worse? Mom's already nervous all the time." The argument drifts into the kitchen, where Mariana tries to ignore them, focusing on chopping vegetables with mechanical motions. But when Diego mentions Velasco Mining and his eagerness to confront them, Mariana can't take it anymore. She lets the knife fall onto the cutting board and turns to them, her voice trembling with frustration. "You don't understand what's at stake," she exclaims. "I'm not just risking my job, but also the safety of all of us. Every time I take a step forward, something else threatens to bring it all crashing down. It's not as simple as you think, Diego." Mariana's words leave Diego and Laura silent. Breathing heavily, she realizes she's lost control. She puts a hand to her face, trying to calm down, and then leaves for her room without another word. Later, sitting on the edge of her bed, Mariana lets the tears fall freely. The responsibility of keeping her family safe and the pressure of taking on such a powerful corporation seem overwhelming. She feels trapped, with no clear way out. Soft knocks on the door interrupt her solitude. It's Logan, who's come with new updates about the documents. Upon seeing her in that state, his expression changes to one of concern and empathy. "Are you okay?" he asks, approaching cautiously. Mariana shakes her head, finally breaking the silence. "I can't afford to lose this job, Logan. My children need stability, a roof over their heads, food on the table. But at the same time, if I stop now, what example am I giving them? That it's okay to give up when things get tough." Logan sits beside her, his hands on his knees as he listens quietly. Finally, he speaks in a calm but firm tone. "Sometimes doing what's right means risking everything. But you don't have to do it alone, Mariana. We're in this together." Mariana looks at him, surprised by the sincerity in his words. For the first time in a long while, she feels someone truly understands her burden. Though tears still stream down her face, a faint spark of determination returns to her eyes. "Thank you," she whispers, letting the words settle. This moment of connection not only gives Mariana the courage to keep going, it also strengthens her resolve. If anything is clear now, it's that her fight is important, not just for her family, but for everyone who has suffered under Velasco Mining's power. Nighttime at Anna's house is quiet, but filled with concentration. Diego and Anna sit on the living room floor, papers and documents spread out in front of them. An old lamp lights the space, casting shadows on the walls. Mariana is in the kitchen making tea, and Max, as always, rests at Anna's feet. Samuel is there with them, pretending to be interested and eager to help. He leans toward the documents with an easy smile, feigning fascination at what they are discovering. "How can I help?" he asks, sounding genuinely enthusiastic. Without suspecting anything, Diego hands him a stack of papers. "We need to sort these out. We have to separate the technical reports from the personal notes." Samuel nods and begins sorting through the documents. As he does, he watches closely. Quietly, he notices a red folder that Diego handles with special care. Its contents seem important, and Samuel, remembering Carlos's instructions, decides this is his chance. "This is a lot of work," Samuel comments. "Why don't you let me handle this pile? That way you can focus on the rest more quickly." Diego nods absent-mindedly. Anna, however, looks up, eyeing Samuel with suspicion. "There's no need. We can manage." "It's okay, Anna," says Diego. "Samuel's just trying to help." Though Anna feels a twinge of discomfort, she doesn't insist. Samuel takes the red folder and places it among the other papers in front of him, pretending to organize them. But while Diego and Anna are distracted, discussing how to arrange the documents, Samuel slips the folder into his backpack. That same night, in a secluded spot outside of town, Samuel delivers the folder to Carlos Salgado. The darkness of the place is barely broken by the headlights of Carlos's car, illuminating Samuel's tense face. Carlos examines the folder, a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. "Good job, Samuel. I knew I could count on you." Instead of keeping the documents, though, Carlos flicks open a lighter and begins to burn them one by one. Samuel watches, a mix of disbelief and remorse as the flames devour the evidence. "There must be no traces," Carlos says coldly. "And remember, this never happened." Samuel nods, but his face reflects the internal conflict gnawing at him. He's done what Carlos asked, but he can't ignore the growing guilt he feels. The next morning, Ana and Diego are reviewing the documents again when they notice the red folder is missing. "Where's the folder with the most important reports?" Diego asks, frantically searching through the piles of papers. "It can't be lost," says Ana, her tone growing tense. "I'm sure we left it here last night." They both turn to Samuel, who has just arrived with his usual demeanor. "Do you know anything about this?" Ana asks, fixing her gaze on him. "Me? No, I have no idea," Samuel replies, visibly nervous. "You're the only one who was here with us," Ana exclaims, standing up. "How could you do this? That folder was vital." Samuel shakes his head, raising his hands in innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you left it somewhere else." Diego, less forceful than Ana but growing doubtful, says, "Samuel, if you know something, you have to tell us. This is too important." But Samuel sticks to his story. "I had nothing to do with it, I swear." Without concrete proof, Ana and Diego can do nothing but watch him with suspicion. The loss of the folder is not only a blow to their cause, it also fractures the trust within the group. That night, Ana sits on her porch with Max by her side, looking at the horizon with a mix of anger and sadness. "All this, it's so unfair," she murmurs, petting her dog. "Dad trusted me to protect his legacy, and I feel like I'm losing it." Mariana approaches and sits beside her. "This is a tough fight, Ana. But you're not alone. We'll keep going, no matter what." Though Mariana's words are comforting, Ana knows the battle against Velasco Mining has just gotten steeper, and the shadow of Samuel's betrayal will keep haunting them, even if they can't prove it. Paranoia grows like a shadow over the small community. Since the red folder disappeared, the group feels every move is being watched. Furtive glances, cars that slowly drive down their streets, and anonymous calls that hang up immediately all contribute to a constant air of tension. Carlos Salgado, aware of their increasing efforts to expose the truth, intensifies surveillance. Men connected to Velasco Mining begin openly following Mariana, Diego, and Logan, sending a clear message. They are not safe. One morning, while Diego walks to school, he feels a presence behind him. Turning discreetly, he sees a black car trailing him at a short distance. He quickens his pace, hoping to lose the driver in the town's winding streets, but the car follows him precisely. Finally, the vehicle stops a few meters away. Diego also stops, his heart pounding. A middle-aged man, dressed in dark clothes, rolls down the window and watches him silently for a few seconds that feel like an eternity. Then, without a word, the car drives off into the distance. That night, Diego tells Mariana what happened. His mother listens, her face taut with worry. "I want you to be very careful," she says. "If you notice anything strange, don't go out alone. Promise me you'll be more cautious." "I promise, Mom," says Diego, feeling a mixture of fear and determination inside. Meanwhile, Laura begins to notice how Diego and Ana are spending more and more time together, whispering and reviewing what seem like important documents. She feels left out and decides to confront her brother one evening while he's sorting papers at the dining table. "Why don't you ever tell me anything?" she asks, frustrated. "I can help too." Diego, focused on the documents, answers brusquely, This isn't a game, Laura. It's dangerous. Hurt by his tone, Laura crosses her arms and glares at him. You always say that, but you never give me a chance. Just because I'm younger doesn't mean I can't do something useful. Without waiting for an answer, Laura stomps off to her room, fuming. But instead of giving up, she decides to start investigating on her own, increasing the tension within the group without anyone knowing. Meanwhile, Anna watches as her world becomes increasingly hostile. From her window, she sees neighbors avoiding her, and fear seems to envelop the entire town. One night, while checking her garden, she notices two men in the distance. They're placing something near her house. Anna watches with her heart in her throat as the men finish their task and quickly leave. She decides to go see what it is, with Max by her side, who growls softly, ears alert. Near the porch, she finds a piece of paper stuck to a rock. On the paper, a childlike drawing shows a red circle representing the mine with the word "basta," enough, scrawled across it. The message is clear: stop, or there will be consequences. Anna clutches the drawing in her hands, her eyes a mix of fear and anger. She knows the threat is real, but also that stopping isn't an option. As Max barks into the darkness, Anna realizes their fight is far from over. Logan drives along a dusty road that winds toward the outskirts of town. The landscape, filled with dry shrubs and scattered trees, reflects the harshness of life in that place. Beside him, Mariana holds a folder with the documents they've managed to save, her gaze fixed on the horizon. They both know this meeting is crucial. They arrive at a small wooden house, worn by time. On the porch, Mike, a sturdy man with a stiff leg, sits in an old wooden chair carving a piece of wood in silence. His weathered face and strong hands tell stories of years of hard work in the mine. "Mike," Logan begins as he steps out of the car. "I'm Logan Brown. We need to talk to you." Mike looks up, his expression serious. "I've talked enough in my life, and it's never done me any good. What do you want?" Mariana approaches, calm but determined. "We want your help. We're trying to expose what Velasco Mining has done, not only to Rick West, but to the entire community." Upon hearing Rick's name, Mike frowns. "I knew Rick. He was a good man. But if you're here expecting me to do what he did, you'd best save your breath. That company almost destroyed me. I can't face them again." Seated on Mike's porch, Logan and Mariana try to reason with him. Logan shows him some of the documents they have, explaining how Rick left evidence of the company's negligence. Mike listens attentively, but when Logan asks him to share his story, he shakes his head. "I don't want to reopen that wound," he says bitterly. "They won back then, and they'll win now. I already tried suing them after my accident, but my case was dismissed for lack of evidence. I lost my job, my health, and almost my home. I'm not going through that again." Logan lowers his gaze, frustrated, but Mariana, with a spark of determination in her eyes, decides to take the lead. "Mike," she says, moving closer, "this isn't just about you or us. It's about the people who still work in that mine, the families who depend on them. Anna, Rick's daughter, is fighting to keep her father's memory alive. And if you don't speak up, those people will remain silenced." Mike looks at Mariana, his jaw tight. "Why should I be the one to speak? I've got nothing left to lose, but nothing to gain either." "We're not asking you to do it for us," Mariana replies gently but firmly. "Do it for the children of this town, for those who shouldn't inherit this silence, for those who, like you, have been victims and deserve justice." Mike is silent for several minutes, staring at the ground. Finally, he takes a deep breath, his face filled with resignation and sadness. "All right, I'll tell you what I know, but on one condition. Only if you can protect me. I don't want what happened to Rick to happen to me." Mariana and Logan nod, both aware of the risk Mike is taking. "We'll protect you," Logan promises. "We won't let you face this alone." Mike nods slowly and begins to share his story. He speaks of the years he worked in the mine, of how he reported equipment failures and unsafe conditions, and how his warnings were ignored. He also names the supervisors and managers who knew about the problems but chose to look the other way. Rick wasn't the only one who knew what was going on, he says, but he was the only one brave enough to stand up to them. With Mike's information, the group starts mapping out a new plan. His testimony, combined with the documents they still have, might be enough to present a solid case in court, but they all know this puts them in even greater danger. As Logan and Mariana say goodbye to Mike that night, they feel they've taken an important step, though a risky one. Left alone on his porch, Mike looks up at the starry sky and murmurs to himself, "I hope it's worth it this time." The showdown with Velasco Mining is far from over, but with Mike on their side, the group has new strength. Now the truth seems closer than ever, though the threats surrounding them also intensify. The basement of Anna's house, dark and dusty, had always been a place she avoided. But now, with the growing urgency to find more evidence against Velasco Mining, it had become a crucial space. That afternoon, while organizing the remaining documents with Diego, Anna notices something odd about one of the shelves. The wooden planks are slightly misaligned, as if something is hidden behind them. "Wait," says Anna, setting the papers aside. Diego watches silently as she struggles to move the shelves, revealing a small metal box covered in dust. Anna takes it carefully, her hands trembling slightly. Opening it, she finds several cassette tapes labeled with dates and words that catch her attention. "For Anna" and "Caution." Her breathing quickens. "They're from my dad," she whispers. Back in the living room, Anna and Diego find an old cassette player among their accumulated things. With some effort, they get it to work and insert the first tape. A moment of static fills the room before Rick West's warm yet worried voice emerges. "Anna, if you're listening to this, it's because something happened to me," the recording begins. Anna holds her breath, her eyes full of tears. "I want you to know that everything I did thinking of your future. Velasco Mining isn't what it seems. They're dangerous. They've sacrificed lives to save money, and I fear I might be next." Diego watches Anna, but she doesn't take her eyes off the player, clinging to every word her father left behind. Rick goes on to describe in detail the equipment failures, mentioning how his warnings were ignored. Specific names come to light, including Don Felix Romero, the local manager who repeatedly dismissed his reports. "They know I'm talking too much," Rick says quietly. "If something happens to me, I want you to use this to prove what they did. Don't let them get away with it." On another recording, Rick's tone changes. He sounds more personal, more directly addressing Anna. "You will always be my pride, Anna. Never let anyone make you feel less. You're stronger than you think. If you can, find help. Don't face this alone." Anna can't hold back her tears any longer. Deeply moved, Diego places a hand on her shoulder. "Your dad was an incredible man," he says softly. Mariana, who had been listening from the doorway, steps into the room with eyes shining from tears. "He was a brave man, and you carry his strength," she tells Anna. "That's why we can't stop. This isn't just his fight. Now it's ours too." Rick's words not only move Anna, but also strengthen the group. Mariana sees in Anna a reflection of her own desire to protect her children, and Logan, who arrives shortly afterward, listens to the recordings with a mix of astonishment and admiration. "These tapes are more than evidence," Logan says. "They're your father's legacy, and we'll make sure justice is served." That night, as the group gathers to plan their next move, they feel Rick's voice guiding them. His sacrifice and bravery become the engine driving their cause. Though Velasco Mining's threats remain, Rick's words remind them why they are fighting. Together, they are more determined than ever to expose the truth and honor the memory of a man who never stopped fighting for what was right. Logan's house is filled with tension that night. In the center of the room, Mike sits on an old chair, his hands resting on his knees, his gaze fixed on the floor. Mariana, Logan, Anna, and Diego surround him, listening silently as the former miner begins to tell his story. "I knew what was happening in the mine," says Mike, his voice heavy with bitterness. "I saw how they ignored the failures. The supervisors knew the machines were failing, but they always found a way to justify it. It's not that bad, they said. But it was bad." Mike pauses, his dark eyes filling with pain at the memory. "When my accident happened, they blamed me, said I didn't follow safety protocols. But I know the truth. That machine hadn't been maintained for months, and they knew it. After the accident, they offered me a ridiculous settlement in exchange for my silence. I had no other choice. I had to accept to survive." Mariana, moved, places a hand on his shoulder. "It shouldn't have been that way, Mike. They did this to you." Mike nods slowly, then looks up, his expression hardening. "There are documents in the main office that could prove all this. Reports, internal emails, even contracts showing they knew what was happening. But those papers are well guarded. It won't be easy to get them." That same night, Sofia Rojas, an idealistic lawyer who has just joined the case, meets with the group. Her determination is palpable as she explains the plan to formalize Mike's testimony and use it as the foundation for their legal strategy. "With Mike's testimony and Rick's tapes, we have a strong case," Sofia says. "But we need more. If we can get those documents Mike mentioned, we can file a lawsuit they can't ignore." The meeting ends with the decision to schedule Mike's official statement in a few days. Everyone knows this step is crucial, but also dangerous. The morning of the meeting arrives with an unsettling calm. Mike, determined to keep his word, walks toward the agreed location. But as he crosses a narrow alley on the outskirts of town, two men ambush him. The scene is brutal. Mike tries to defend himself, but the attacker's strength overwhelms him. The blows echo in the air, and Mike falls to the ground, unable to resist further. The men leave quickly, leaving Mike injured and unconscious in the alley. The camera lingers on his still figure as a pool of blood spreads beneath him. Hours later, Mariana and Logan find him in the hospital. Mike is unconscious, with fractures in various parts of his body and multiple contusions. Mariana, on the verge of tears, holds his hand while Logan speaks with the doctor. "He will survive, but he'll need time to recover," says the doctor. "He's badly beaten." The news devastates the group. Although Mike is alive, his inability to testify is a significant blow to their cause. However, the attack also sends a clear message. Velasco Mining is willing to do anything to protect its secrets. That night, back at Logan's house, the group gathers again. Anna, sitting next to Max, watches as the others speak quietly. Finally, Mariana talks, her voice filled with determination. "We can't let this stop us," she says. "This only shows how far they're willing to go, but we can't let them win." Sofia nods. "We'll keep going. If we can't use Mike's testimony, we'll find another way. But this isn't over." Although the attack on Mike is devastating, it also ignites a new fire in the group. They see it not only as a loss, but also as a reminder of the strength of their fight. Rick, Mike, and all the other victims of Velasco Mining deserve justice, and they won't stop until they achieve it. The afternoon is quiet at Anna's house, but inside the living room, tension is palpable. Diego is reviewing the remaining documents, organizing what's left after losing the red folder. Still, something's not right. As he compares notes, he realizes that other key documents are missing as well. Among them, some reports Rick mentioned in the recordings. "This doesn't make sense," Diego murmurs, frowning as he frantically searches through piles of papers. Mariana and Logan, who are nearby, watch him closely. "What's wrong?" Mariana asks, coming closer. "More things are missing," Diego replies, holding up a sheet that seems to belong to an incomplete set. "I'm sure they were here before." Mariana's expression hardens. "Are you saying someone took more documents?" Diego remains silent for a moment before something clicks in his mind. Samuel's suspicious behavior in recent weeks, his nervousness and vague excuses, come rushing back to him. "I think I know who it was," he finally says. That night, Diego finds Samuel in a nearby park where the young man often hangs out. The conversation starts casually, but quickly becomes tense. "Samuel, I need you to tell me the truth," Diego says, crossing his arms. "Do you know anything about the missing documents?" Samuel, visibly nervous, shakes his head. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play games with me," Diego replies, his tone firmer. "You were the only one who was around those papers when they disappeared. If you're working for someone, I need to know." Samuel tries to hold firm, but his nervousness betrays him. Finally, cornered, he lowers his gaze and confesses. "All right, it was me, but I had no choice." "What do you mean you had no choice?" Diego's voice rises. "Carlos forced me," Samuel answers, eyes filled with regret. "He threatened to hurt my family. My mom is sick, and we needed the money. He promised to cover her medications if I helped him." Diego takes a step closer, fury in his eyes. "And you think that justifies what you did? Because of you, we're more vulnerable than ever. Rick died for this, and now you're helping the same people who killed him." Samuel, on the verge of tears, raises his hands in surrender. "I know, Diego. I know I ruined everything, but I want to fix it. I know things about Carlos and how Velasco Mining operates. I can help you, please give me another chance." Later that night, the group meets at Logan's house to discuss what to do about Samuel. Mariana, always cautious, speaks first. "He betrayed us once. What makes us think he won't do it again?" "I see your point, Mariana," Logan says, crossing his arms. "But now it seems Carlos no longer trusts him. If Samuel really has information that could help us, we could use it." Ana, who has been silent, finally speaks. "I don't know if we can trust him, but if he knows something that can help get justice for my dad, I think we should listen, but not without supervision." Mariana still hesitates, but finally nods. "If we're going to keep him around, it will be under our rules. No access to the documents, and everything he says will have to be verified." The group reaches an agreement. Samuel may stay, but he'll be closely monitored. Although the internal tensions don't disappear, there's a renewed sense of purpose. Now, with Samuel in a delicate position, they hope his inside knowledge of Velasco Mining might be an unexpected advantage. As Samuel joins the group, knowing this is his last chance to redeem himself, everyone is aware that broken trust is hard to repair. But in such an uneven fight, any advantage can make a difference. In an exclusive city restaurant, the atmosphere is as cold as it is elegant. Tables are set with impeccable white linens, and the murmur of conversations barely rises above the soft piano music. At a secluded table, Victoria Velasco waits calmly, her posture impeccable and her expression controlled. Despite her serene exterior, her gaze projects the power and determination of someone accustomed to getting what she wants. Logan Brown enters the restaurant, his slightly disheveled figure contrasting with the place's luxury. A waiter guides him to Victoria's table. Upon arriving, she greets him with a calculated smile. "Logan, thank you for coming. I hope the trip was comfortable," she says, her voice as cold as it is courteous. Logan sits down, placing his jacket over the back of the chair. "I didn't have many options, did I?" he replies, his tone casual but loaded with tension. Victoria wastes no time. Holding a glass of wine, she begins to speak, her tone full of false sympathy. "I've followed your career, Logan. In your best days, you were a brilliant journalist. Such a shame how things ended. But I know everyone deserves a second chance." Logan watches her warily, discreetly activating a small recording device hidden in his shirt pocket. "And what exactly is your proposal, Mrs. Velasco?" Victoria smiles, leaning forward slightly. "We know you've had problems in the past. Money, reputation. I can fix all of that. You just have to walk away from this matter. Logan raises an eyebrow, feigning interest. Fix it how? With money, of course, Victoria says, as if it were obvious. I can guarantee you a better future. I can help you get back everything you lost, and even more. But if you continue, not only you will pay the consequences, but also those you care about. Is that really a risk you're willing to take? Logan remains calm, taking a sip of water to buy time. It's a generous offer, he says, his voice neutral. What kind of consequences are we talking about? Victoria smiles again, but this time her tone turns colder. Let's say it wouldn't be convenient for you or your little group of friends, especially that nurse, Mariana, right? And her children. Such a vulnerable family shouldn't be involved in something so dangerous. Logan feels rage bubbling inside him, but he forces himself to maintain composure. He finishes his water and leans forward. Thanks for the offer, Victoria, he says calmly. But the truth has no price. Victoria watches him, her expression unchanged, though a flicker of annoyance passes fleetingly through her eyes. It's your decision, Logan. But remember, decisions have consequences. Without another word, Logan stands, takes his jacket, and leaves the restaurant, leaving Victoria with her glass of wine and her impeccable composure. That night, back at Anna's house, Logan gathers the group. Mariana, Anna, Diego, Sophia, and Samuel listen as he places the recording device on the table. I want you to hear something, he says before pressing play. Victoria's voice fills the room, calculated and threatening. I can guarantee you a better future, but if you continue, not only you will pay the consequences, but also the people you care about. When the recording ends, silence weighs heavily in the room. Mariana, fists clenched, stands up. This woman is a monster. How far is she willing to go? As far as necessary, Logan replies, but now we have something on her. This recording is a key piece of evidence. It doesn't just show her willingness to bribe, but also to threaten. It can help us dismantle her perfect facade. Sophia nods, already calculating how to use the evidence. This will not only strengthen our legal case, but it might also encourage more people in town to speak up. If they see that even someone like Victoria Velasco can be exposed, we might gain more support. Though Victoria's threat looms over them, the group finds a reason to keep going in that recording. It's a reminder of why they're fighting, not just for justice for Rick, but for all those who've been silenced by Velasco Mining's power. Now, with this new piece in their arsenal, they are more determined than ever to face the giant. Sofia Rojas's office is tucked away in a small building on the outskirts of the city. It's a modest space, with walls adorned by diplomas and a collection of well-worn law books. Mariana enters with firm steps, though her heart pounds. She carries a folder full of documents and recordings that represent her only hope. Sophia, a middle-aged woman with her hair in a messy bun, stands behind her desk reviewing papers when Mariana arrives. Her eyes, though tired, reflect intelligence and experience. Mrs. Lopez, says Sophia, shaking her hand, I read your message, but if you've come here for help against Velasco Mining, I warn you, it won't be easy. Mariana nods, placing the folder on Sophia's desk. Nothing we've done so far has been easy, but I believe this time we have something different. Please, listen to what I have to show you. With a portable player, Mariana plays Rick West's recordings. His voice fills the room, detailing machinery failures, ignored warnings, and the specific names of those responsible. Sophia listens in silence, her expression shifting gradually from indifference to a mix of interest and determination. Mariana then explains Mike's notes and his testimony about the documents stored in the main office. Mike risked a lot to share this with us, and we know Velasco Mining will do anything to protect themselves. Sophia leans back in her chair, arms crossed. Her expression is serious, her eyes fixed on the recorder. Finally, she speaks. I fought them once before, and I lost. I don't think this time will be any different. Mariana, undeterred, responds, But this time you won't be alone. We're not asking for miracles. We just want a chance at justice. Sophia sighs deeply. How far are you willing to go? As far as necessary, Mariana answers firmly. That night, Sophia reviews the documents and listens to the recordings again. Rick's words seem to resonate with her, reminding her of the legal battles she faced in the past and the manipulations she suffered at the hands of Velasco Mining. Something inside her, a spark that had been extinguished, begins to reignite. The next day, she calls Mariana. I'm in, she says firmly. This time we have more evidence, and this time I won't be alone. Sophia joins the group and quickly brings legal structure to their efforts. She organizes the evidence, identifies key points in the documents, and begins to outline a clear strategy for the case. Her previous experience with Velasco Mining proves invaluable. They trust their power to protect them, but that's also their weak spot, she explains. If we attack from multiple angles, we can break their facade. She suggests seeking more allies among current mine workers, people who can provide additional testimony about working conditions and the company's negligence. We need to show that this isn't an isolated incident, she says. It's a pattern of abuse. During a quiet moment, while reviewing documents together, Sophia shares her story with Mariana. She talks about how Velasco Mining manipulated key witnesses and used legal tactics to dismiss evidence in her last case. They left me with no options, she says, her voice trembling for a moment. I lost my client's trust, and over time, my career. I thought I'd never face them again. Mariana listens sympathetically. I know what it's like to lose something important, but I also know that loss doesn't have to define us. Now we're here, together, and that means we still have a chance. The two women look at each other, recognizing a strength in the other that only those who've faced great adversity can understand. This bond reinforces their determination and gives the group an even stronger emotional foundation to face the battle ahead. With Sophia leading the legal strategy and the group more united than ever, the fight against Velasco Mining gains new momentum. Though they know the obstacles are immense, they also feel they have something more powerful, the truth and the will to never give up. It's a quiet night in the town, but in Anna's house, the air is heavy with tension. Mariana, Logan, Diego, Laura, and Anna gather in the living room, surrounded by documents scattered across the table. Sophia, with her laptop open, prepares the final details for the trial as the group carefully reviews every remaining piece of evidence. Max, Anna's loyal dog, lies by her side, ears alert. Suddenly, Max starts barking furiously, his body tense as he looks toward the door. Mariana rises immediately and peeks through the window. Her face hardens at the sight of a man lurking near the entrance. "There's someone outside," she says quietly but urgently. Before they can react, a crash breaks the silence. The back door flies open and Carlos Salgado enters with two men armed with iron bars. Carlos's expression is cold and calculating. "We know you have more evidence," Carlos says, his voice firm. "Hand it over, and no one gets hurt." The men spread out through the house, starting to search among the papers and boxes. Mariana, heart pounding, grabs a kitchen knife from a nearby table and positions herself in front of Logan, who steps between her and Carlos. "You have no right to be here! Leave right now!" Mariana shouts, her voice full of courage but also fear. Carlos smirks scornfully, taking a step toward her. "You're not in a position to give orders. This isn't your problem. Step aside." Meanwhile, following Mariana's instructions, Anna, Diego, and Laura, with Max behind them, run to the basement. Carefully closing the door, they begin desperately searching for a place to hide the most important evidence. The flashlight Diego holds illuminates the dusty, dark space. "Hurry!" Anna says, her voice trembling. "They can't find these tapes." Diego, thinking quickly, finds a gap behind a brick wall. With trembling hands, he slips in the tapes and the most incriminating documents. "This should keep them safe for now," he he murmurs. Max, protective by nature, stays close to the children, growling at the basement door as if he knows the danger is getting closer. Upstairs, tensions peak. Logan, seeing Carlos move toward Mariana, throws a punch at one of the men, starting a fight. Though he doesn't have the advantage of strength, his determination is evident. Mariana, though afraid, uses the knife to keep Carlos at bay. "Don't come out, no matter what!" Mariana shouts toward the basement, her voice echoing through the house. The fight intensifies. Mariana manages to superficially wound one of the intruders, cutting his arm, but Carlos, with a violent shove, knocks her to the ground. Logan, bloodied but still standing, launches himself at Carlos, creating just enough distraction for Max, who has come upstairs at the sound of the struggle, to lunge at one of the men. The dog bites down hard, forcing him to retreat with a cry of pain. Carlos, seeing that he can't find what he's looking for and that the situation is quickly escalating, shouts an order. "Let's go. This isn't over. We'll be back, and next time we won't be so kind." The men hurry out, leaving behind a wrecked living room and a group that, though bruised, remains standing. When calm returns, Mariana helps Logan to his feet. Both are covered in cuts and bruises, but relieved that the children are safe. In the basement, Anna hugs Max tightly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you, Max," she whispers, petting the dog who seems to understand the importance of his bravery. The group gathers in the living room, exhausted but determined. "This shows how much they fear what we have," says Logan, wiping blood from his face. "But we can't let them win. Now more than ever, we must press on." The fight has become more dangerous, but also clearer. They cannot stop. What's at stake is not just justice for Rick, but the safety and future of everyone who has stood up to Velasco Mining. The hospital, lit by the corridor's cold lights, is silent except for the echo of Mariana and Logan's footsteps. Both walk toward Mike's room, their faces marked by worry. When they enter, they find him lying in bed, eyes closed and breathing heavily. The attack has visibly weakened him, but upon hearing them enter, he opens his eyes slowly. "Mike," Mariana says softly, approaching his side. "We wanted to see how you are, and we also need your help." With effort, Mike sits up slightly. His eyes reflect both exhaustion and determination. "I know why you're here," he murmurs, voice barely a whisper. "I don't have much time left, but I can still do something." With trembling hands, Mike gestures toward the drawer of his bedside table. Mariana opens it and finds a small USB drive. She holds it as Mike explains. "This has everything you need," he says, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Copies of contracts, internal emails, and the names of those responsible. It's enough to bring Velasco Mining down." Logan, now seated on the other side of the bed, takes the USB and examines it carefully. "How did you get this?" he asks. Mike takes a deep breath before answering. "A former colleague of mine worked at the main office. He knew what was going on, but never dared to speak out. Before he was fired, he secretly passed these files to me. He knew they might be useful someday." Mike pauses to catch his breath and then continues. "Among the documents, there are contracts signed by Victoria Velasco, approving the use of faulty machinery. There are also emails where she and other executives downplay safety protocols to cut costs. It's enough to show they knew exactly what they were doing." Mariana takes Mike's hand, her eyes full of tears. "This could change everything, Mike. You have no idea how much this means." Mike nods with a weak smile. "Do justice, not for me, but for all those who never had a voice. Rick, the workers, their families, they deserve better." The room falls into a heavy silence, broken only by the sound of the monitor recording Mike's weakening heartbeat. "We promise we will," says Logan firmly. "We won't give up." That night, as Mariana and Logan work in Anna's living room reviewing the USB's documents, they receive a call from the hospital. Mike has died from complications of his injuries. The news hits the group like a hammer blow. Mariana sits on the sofa, holding Anna in her arms, while Logan stares into space, trying to process the meaning of this loss. "He believed in us until the end," says Mariana, her voice broken. "We can't let this be in vain." Logan nods, his determination renewed. "What he left us is enough to prove the truth. Mike gave everything he had so this would come to light. Now it's our responsibility to see it through." Mike's USB becomes the centerpiece of their case. His sacrifice not only provides them with decisive evidence, but also a new strength to carry on. Although the pain of losing him is deep, the group finds solace in the thought that his legacy will live on in the fight they have sworn to win. The courtroom is packed. Tension fills the air as those present await the start of what promises to be a crucial trial. In one of the front rows, Mariana, Anna, Logan, and Diego sit together, their faces reflecting a mixture of determination and nerves. Sofia Rojas, in her place beside the legal team, reviews her notes one last time. This is the moment they've been preparing for weeks. The judge enters the courtroom and the trial begins. Sofia speaks first, her voice clear and firm, presenting the case against Velasco Mining. "This isn't just a case of negligence," she says, addressing the judge and jury. "It's a systematic pattern of disregard for safety and human life. Today, we present irrefutable evidence that Velasco Mining knew what it was doing and chose to act with indifference." One by one, Sofia introduces the evidence they've gathered. Rick's recordings, the documents found in the basement, and finally, the USB Mike gave them before he died. With each piece of evidence, murmurs in the courtroom grow louder, and Velasco Mining's defense begins to falter. The most moving moment of the trial comes when Anna takes the stand. The 12-year-old girl, supported by a reassuring look from Mariana, takes a deep breath before speaking. "My dad was a good man," Anna begins, her voice trembling. "He worked hard every day so we wouldn't go without. But he also cared about others. When he found out the machines were dangerous, he wanted to do something about it. He didn't want anyone else to suffer like he did. That's why they killed him." The courtroom remains in absolute silence as Anna continues. "My dad died because he tried to protect others. What Velasco Mining did wasn't an accident. It was negligence. They knew the machines weren't safe and they still used them." Even the most skeptical members of the court are moved by Anna's words. Her tear-filled eyes and her courage captivate everyone's attention, making her testimony a key moment in the trial. In contrast, Victoria Velasco, seated beside her lawyers, maintains a cold, unflinching expression. The defense tries to manipulate the case, presenting counterclaims and questioning the legitimacy of the evidence. They argue that the recordings are inadmissible and that the documents were obtained illegally. However, Sofia, anticipating these moves, responds firmly, dismantling the defense's arguments one by one. The courtroom erupts in murmurs when Logan takes the stand and plays the recording of his meeting with Victoria. On the tape, Victoria can be clearly heard offering him money and threatening the group if they continued with their case. The judge listens closely, his expression growing increasingly severe. The evidence is devastating. It not only reinforces the previous proof, but also directly exposes Velasco Mining's corrupt tactics. The trial reaches its climax when Sofia presents the documents found on Mike's USB drive. The contracts signed by Victoria Velasco, approving the use of defective machinery, and the emails where she downplays safety protocols are projected for everyone to see. Sofia addresses the jury. "These are not simple oversights," she says forcefully. "They are conscious decisions made by people who chose money over human life. These signatures, these words, are proof that they knew exactly what they were doing." The judge, visibly affected, takes notes while the jury watches attentively. At the end of the presentation, the judge announces that the trial will recess for deliberation. As everyone leaves the courtroom, the group gathers in a corner. Mariana hugs Anna, who is still trembling from the intensity of her testimony. Logan places a hand on Sofia's shoulder. "You did an amazing job," he says. "Now everything is in the judge's hands." Although uncertainty weighs heavily on them, they know they have given their all. The evidence, Anna's words, and the USB drive have changed the course of their struggle. Now, all that remains is to wait for the verdict, knowing they have done the right thing and honored the memory of Rick and all those who fell victim to Velasco mining. The courtroom is filled with anticipation when the judge enters to deliver the final verdict. Tension is palpable, and the group, Mariana, Anna, Logan, Diego, Laura, and Sophia, waits with bated breath. At the bench, the judge, in a solemn tone, begins to read his decision. After considering all the evidence presented and the testimonies given, this court finds Ms. Victoria Velasco guilty of criminal negligence, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The accused shall be taken into custody, and additional proceedings against Velasco Mining will commence. A murmur spreads through the room as two officers approach Victoria to arrest her. For the first time, the impenetrable facade of her confidence cracks slightly. Although she tries to maintain her composure, her eyes betray the weight of her defeat. "This isn't over," she mutters bitterly as she's escorted out, but her words no longer carry the same weight. The group watches as justice finally catches up to one of the most powerful people in the region. In the following days, the news spreads like wildfire. Velasco Mining faces massive fines and the threat of closure, while employees and former supervisors are called to testify in further investigations. Though the victory is significant, it does not come without cost. For Anna, the sense of triumph is mixed with deep sadness. Returning home after the trial brings memories of her father and a heaviness she cannot ignore. One night, as she sits on the porch, Mariana approaches. "What are you thinking about, Anna?" she asks softly. Anna lowers her gaze, fiddling with a leaf in her hand. "This house, it's all I have left of my dad. But I feel I can't stay here. Every corner reminds me he's gone." Mariana sits beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's normal to feel that way, Anna. But remember this. Your father would be incredibly proud of you. What you did, what we all achieved, was thanks to your courage. He isn't in these walls. He's in your heart and in every step you take toward the future." Anna looks at her, eyes filled with tears. "Do you think it would be okay if I left this house behind?" "I think he would want you to be happy, wherever you decide to be," Mariana replies gently. A few days later, Anna makes a decision. With the support of Mariana, Logan, Diego, and Laura, she decides to leave the house and start a new life with them. In a symbolic gesture, the group gathers in the yard to plant a tree, a young oak that will serve as a reminder of all they've overcome. As she digs a small hole for the roots, Anna says, "This tree will grow with us. It's a symbol of everything my dad left us and of what we'll build together." Everyone takes a turn adding soil, sealing their commitment as a family. Max runs around them, barking happily, as if celebrating the new beginning too. The sun shines warmly over the small town, bringing a fresh and renewed air. The golden light illuminates the rooftops of the houses, and the soft chirping of birds announces a special day for the Lopez family and Anna. After weeks of legal arrangements and emotional adjustments, Mariana and Logan have decided to formalize their relationship and officially adopt Anna, transforming what began as an act of solidarity into a true family. The Lopez home, which once felt too large for Mariana and her two children, now vibrates with new energy. The sounds of laughter, hurried footsteps, and Max's barking fill every corner, turning the house into a space full of life. That night, with a starry sky as a backdrop, Mariana and Logan sit together on the porch, enjoying the quiet of the town. A gentle breeze stirs the branches of the newly planted oak, and Max rests at their feet. After a few moments of reflection, Logan takes Mariana's hand. "Mariana," he begins, his voice soft but full of sincerity. "I spent years looking for redemption, trying to find something that would give meaning to everything I lost. But what I really needed was someone who believed in me. Thank you for giving me a second chance, not just to me, but to Anna as well." Mariana smiles, squeezing his hand tenderly. "Logan, we all deserve a second chance, and you've shown you're more than your past. We're a family now. No matter what comes, we'll face it together." They remain in silence, enjoying the moment, as the tree they planted seems to lean slightly toward them, as if also listening to their promise. Upstairs, Anna's room reflects the transformation she's experiencing. Laura has decorated the walls with colorful drawings and magazine clippings, filling the space with life. Anna sits on the bed, flipping through a book when Laura enters, holding 2 crowns made of flowers she collected in the garden. "Look, Anna," Laura says excitedly. "Now that we're sisters, we need an official ceremony." Anna can't help but laugh as Laura places one of the crowns on her head and clears her throat dramatically. "I, Laura Lopez, hereby declare you officially part of our family. Do you promise not to get mad if I eat your favorite cookies?" Anna smiles for the first time in days and with a spark of humor replies, "Only if you promise not to tear my books." The 2 girls burst into laughter as Max, sensing the excitement, jumps at their feet, wagging his tail enthusiastically. Still laughing, Laura hugs Anna. "We're sisters now, forever." Meanwhile, Diego, who initially seemed reluctant to accept the changes, has proudly taken on the role of big brother. One afternoon, he decides to teach Anna how to ride a bike. In a nearby park, under the shade of a tree, Anna looks at the bicycle with uncertainty. "Come on, it's not that hard," says Diego, adjusting Anna's helmet. "You just have to trust me." At first, Anna wobbles, and after a few meters, she falls, scraping her knee. Though tears well up in her eyes, Diego is at her side instantly, helping her up. "It doesn't matter how many times you fall," he says with a smile, brushing the dust off her hands. "We'll always be here to help you back up." Anna looks at him and nods, determined to try again. Moments later, she's pedaling on her own, and her laughter fills the air as Diego runs after her, clapping. That night, the family gathers in the backyard to celebrate. The table is decorated with fresh flowers, and the warm lights hanging from the trees create a welcoming atmosphere. Max, as always, is there, patiently waiting for any scraps of food. Mariana, a glass in hand, stands to propose a toast. Her voice, full of emotion, reflects the journey they've all shared. "I want to toast to new beginnings, to this family that, though imperfect, is everything we need." They all raise their glasses, even Anna, who smiles shyly, but with a heart full of gratitude. Laura takes her sister's hand, while Diego playfully nudges her shoulder. Logan, watching the scene, feels a peace he has not known in years. With Velasco Mining's downfall and Victoria Velasco's arrest, the town began to change. At first, the shift was subtle, barely noticeable. The news that the company faced massive fines and the threat of closure spread like wildfire, sparking a mix of hope and caution among the inhabitants. The miners, who had endured precarious conditions for years, started to gather in small groups to discuss their rights. For the first time, there was a sense of possibility, a feeling that they could demand something better for themselves and their families. The movement gained momentum quickly. Inspired by Anna's courage and the group's determination, the miners and their families began to organize. What had once been whispers in the mine's corridors became open discussions in the town's squares. Don Ernesto, a veteran miner known for his skepticism, was among the first to change his stance. At first, he had doubted that anything could change, but after seeing Anna's determination and the tangible results of the trial, his perspective shifted. At a community gathering organized in the central square, Don Ernesto took the floor. Surrounded by dozens of workers, their families, and curious onlookers, he spoke in a firm voice that reflected years of experience and internal struggle. "For years we accepted crumbs because we were afraid," he began, his eyes scanning the crowd. "They made us believe we couldn't aspire to more, But today, thanks to Anna and her family, we know we can demand what we deserve. It's time for them to hear us." The square erupted in applause. It was a historic moment for the town. The event included speeches by other workers, live music, and an exhibit featuring photographs and documents that told the story of Rick West and other miners who dared to stand up to Velasco mining. The images, carefully curated by Sofia and Mariana, showed both suffering and hope. In one corner, a large sign read, "The truth set us free. Now we seek justice." Anna, shy but excited, was invited onto the stage. At first, her hands trembled and her voice was barely a whisper, but with Mariana and Logan's support, she mustered her courage. "My dad taught me never to give up, even when it seems impossible," she said, her eyes shining with tears. "He fought for all of us, and now it's our turn to continue what he started. This isn't just his legacy, it's yours too. Thank you for helping me honor his memory." Her words deeply resonated with the crowd. Even those who had doubted that the trial would have any impact felt inspired. Anna, with her vulnerability and strength, had become a symbol of change for the town. Diego and Laura also played important roles in this new chapter. Inspired by the impact journalism could have, Diego began writing articles about the changes in the town and the stories of workers who were raising their voices. He published his writings on a blog that soon gained popularity among young people who shared his posts on social media and started debating how they could contribute to the movement. Laura, with her characteristic energy, focused on the town's children. During community events, she organized games and activities for them, ensuring that the new generations also felt the positive impact of change. "They are the future," she said with a smile, helping a group of children paint a mural depicting the mine transforming into fertile farmland. Sofia Rojas, the lawyer who had been instrumental in the case against Velasco Mining, returned to the town to participate in the gathering. In a conversation with Mariana, she shared her vision. "This is just the beginning," she said, watching the workers converse with renewed optimism. "Communities like this one can change the system, but they need to keep fighting. You've shown it's possible. Now it's time for others to follow your example." The event concluded with an outdoor screening. The images showed Rick West working in the mine, interspersed with photographs of Anna and her family planting new seeds in the garden of their new home. Each image served as a reminder that the past, though painful, could serve as the foundation for building a better future. As night fell, the plaza was illuminated by the warm glow of lanterns and candles. People lingered, talking and sharing ideas and hopes for what was to come. At the center of it all, Anna watched in silence, feeling for the first time that her father had not only left a legacy, but had also helped change the destiny of an entire town. On their way home that night, Mariana hugged Anna while Logan, Diego, and Laura walked behind them. Although the road to justice was not yet complete, they knew they had taken a crucial step. The tree they had planted in the garden seemed taller that evening, like a living symbol of the resilience and determination that had united them as a family and as a community. The Lopez family's garden was bathed in the warm light of sunset, a golden glow that made the leaves of the trees sparkle and gave the moment an almost magical quality. In the center of the yard, Anna stood surrounded by her new family. Mariana, wearing a serene smile, held a shovel. Logan was beside her, hands in his pockets and a calm gaze. Diego and Laura traded jokes while Max, Anna's inseparable dog, watched attentively, wagging his tail with enthusiasm. In front of them, a young sapling waited to be planted, a living representation of the future they were building together. Mariana took a step forward, holding the shovel firmly. "Well, someone has to start," she said, her tone warm yet authoritative. Carefully, she pushed the shovel into the ground and began to dig. Each movement was slow and deliberate, as if with each scoop of earth, she wasn't just opening a hole, but also marking the beginning of something profound. After a few minutes, she looked up and handed the shovel to Anna. "Your turn," said Mariana, her voice gentle but full of meaning. Anna took the shovel with both hands. For a brief moment, she hesitated, looking at the small hole in the ground and then at her family. But feeling Mariana's encouraging gaze and Logan's reassuring smile, she found the courage to continue. She drove the shovel into the earth and began to work, each movement laden with emotion. It was as if, with every scoop of dirt she left behind, a little of the pain she had carried since losing her father. One by one, everyone took turns with the shovel. Diego, in a protective gesture, made sure the hole was deep enough. Laura, always enthusiastic, even tried to dig faster, drawing laughter from everyone when she nearly lost her balance. Logan, with his characteristic calm, gave the final scoops, leveling the ground to prepare the perfect place for the tree. Finally, they placed the tree in its spot. Its roots settled into the soil carefully, as if they too understood that this place was special. With dirt-covered hands, each family member contributed, covering the roots and ensuring the tree stood firm. The sound of a gentle breeze and Max's barking filled the air as they worked together, as if the universe itself were celebrating that moment. When they were done, they stood before the newly planted tree, contemplating the symbol of their union. Logan broke the silence, his voice resonating with warmth. "This tree will grow with us. Every time we see it, we'll remember where we came from and where we're going." Mariana, tears shining in her eyes, took a small plaque they had prepared beforehand. She handed it to Anna, who held it with both hands. The plaque read, "In memory of Rick West, a man who fought for the truth." With trembling hands, Anna knelt down and placed the plaque beside the tree. Then she stood up and looked at her family. There were tears in her eyes, but also a smile that radiated gratitude and hope. "Thank you," she began, her voice trembling but full of emotion. "Thank you for giving me a home, but above all, thank you for giving me hope. My dad always said that no matter how dark the day is, there's always light at the end. You are that light for me." Anna's words resonated deeply in everyone. Mariana approached to hug her, followed by Logan, Diego, and Laura. It was a collective embrace, warm and sincere, encapsulating everything they had faced and everything they were willing to build together. The camera slowly pulled back, showing the family united under the newly planted tree. The sun's rays filtered through the leaves, illuminating their smiling faces. Max ran around, barking happily, as if he too was celebrating the moment. In the final shot, Anna stepped away from the group for a moment and looked toward the horizon. Her face reflected a mixture of serenity and determination. It was a new beginning, not only for her, but for all those who had fought alongside her. As gentle music began to play and the credits started to roll, the audience was left with a clear message. In unity, love, and resilience, one can find the strength to overcome any adversity and build a future filled with hope. Anna's story and her new family remind us that even in the darkest moments, hope can take root and flourish if we find the strength to keep moving forward. Loss, pain, and injustice may seem insurmountable, but it is in those moments that courage and unity become our most powerful tools. Rick West not only left a legacy of fighting for the truth, but also an example of love and sacrifice that transcended his own life, inspiring his daughter and an entire community to rise up against oppression. Every step Anna took, every decision she made with her new family, proved that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to it. Resilience does not mean merely enduring. It means transforming pain into action and fear into purpose. Ultimately, this story teaches us that true change begins when we choose not to give up, when we allow love and justice to be the roots of our growth, and when we find in others the strength to move toward a better future. Thank you for joining us in this story of courage, love, and hope. Remember, no matter how difficult the path, we can always find the strength to go on. We'll see you next time, and never forget that truth and unity can change the world. Until next time.